Access privileges in JobPro give you the ability to specify what users can and cannot do throughout the system. So let's start off by taking a look at Setup, and we go into Access Privileges. So in here we can create new groups, and for each group we can assign them to different options that they can or cannot do. We can turn off different options for different modules. So for example, we create a new group and we'll call it Production. And let's just say that most of the options in the system you would want to turn on for this group. Well, we can click on a button here to turn on all access privileges for this group. And then it's easier to just go through the different tabs here and turn off the ones that you don't actually want on. So we've broken down each area of the system into different tabs. Under General we've got Access Setup Screens. So if you don't want a particular set of users or a user to be able to get into this setup area, you can turn that off. Or if you don't want a user to be able to view the dashboard, or to be able to display other users' data in the calendar, quick view and dashboard areas, or to restrict users being able to print labels from various parts of the system, and also generating expense reports. So then under the calendar area we can specify whether a user or a group can view a calendar and also view the resources screen in the calendar as well. And then we've the ability to specify whether a group or user can import data or export data throughout the system. And also in relation to identities, whether they can change the identity around the system. For example, you can have multiple identities in this system. They can be like if you've got multiple stores, multiple offices, etc. And for each area, like on a quote or on an invoice or a purchase order and other areas in the system, it defaults to a specific identity. And that identity can be either based on the user's identity or the customer's identity or a supplier's identity. And if you want to restrict a user on being able to change that identity, you can do so from within here. So on the Inquiries tab, we can specify areas like browse inquiries, print, create, delete inquiries, or also create mail shots, including group SMS messages. So a mail shot is like a mass mailing for marketing purposes. Each module has the ability to specify whether you can browse, print, create records, delete records. So if we look at some of the other tabs here, we can see in addition to those sort of options, again we've got create mail shots at the context level, and we also accessing screens for products, in this case in relation to contacts or companies. So products includes pricing and product related information. So restrictions at an employee level then, for employee records in the context module, we can then restrict a specific user or group that they can see or can't see tabs like the personal tab, rates and wages tab, expenses, the leave tab for holidays and sick days, documents, and the user prefs tab for each employee as well. Now you can also specify that they allow the user to view other users' data. So if this isn't clicked, it means then that a user that is allowed to see some of these areas can only see these areas relating to their record and not other employees' records as well. And then at the bottom we've got the ability to view, edit, access group assigned to the employee. So in other words, an employee can go in and view their record in the system, but they can't necessarily see what access group they've been assigned to or change that. And also whether a user is allowed edit data on the leave or the employee holiday screen as well. So access privilege options in the comms or communications module include browsing, printing or emailing records, creating records and deleting records. Similar options are in documents, and in the jobs module, in addition to those options, you've control over who can duplicate a job, create reports, or change the default employee type rate on a job as well. And that's to do with budgeting time on jobs related to employee types. There's also additional tabs in a job screen that you can control. For example, the budgets tab, cost tab, time log, and assembly tabs. So at the tasks level, you can also do areas like control if somebody or a group can duplicate a task and create reports as well. Similar on the time log tab, in addition to the other options, creating reports. Now on the inventory tab, there's quite a lot of new options added in here. So we have the usual browse, print, create, delete options, and also whether you can access screens, additional tabs like the costings tab, pricing, and amendments tab. And then in the locations module, locations are usually for areas like multiple stock locations or locations that you want to book as resources like rooms and things like that. So you have the ability then to restrict access to browsing, printing, creating, deleting records, or changing the transaction stock location throughout the system. Now what that means is, for example, on a purchase order or on a shipping record, any of these modules that affect stock, you can control whether a user can change the location of the location out or the location in from a stock point of view for products on those types of transactions. Then there's also the batches module. You can browse, print, create and delete, so we can restrict access to the batches module as well. And the units module. Units basically are anything that's tracked by serial numbers, and that's a new module introduced in the system where you can track for a specific product any items in the system by its serial number. So in there we can restrict access to that module as well, browsing, printing, deleting records. So at the purchases tab level in here we can control all the usual options for purchase orders, printing, browsing, create, delete, but also if you can duplicate a purchase order, change the status of an order, create reports, allow set a purchase order to be a drop ship. So what this means is that you can create a PO to a supplier but specify who the drop ship information, your customer information on that PO is. Also, you can specify whether you want someone to be able to create purchase orders linked to different stock locations other than the stock location that's listed or linked to the identity for that user or employee that's accessing the system. Also, purchase invoice and payment related options as well. Under sales, we've got it broken down into quotes module, sales orders module, shipping, sales invoices, receipts module, and the sales accounts module. So there's various options relating to each of those areas of the system in here as well, including duplicating a quote, changing the status of a quote, status of a sales order, and other similar options in the other modules. So once you set up all your different access groups, you then need to assign an access group to each employee that can log into the system. So let's click on return and let's go and view an employee. So the quickest way to do that is click on the quick view for contacts, filter by employees, and let's have a look at Joe Bloggs. And in here we go into the user prefs tab. So in this tab we can specify the login details for each employee, but we can also specify what access group they're assigned to. Based on that, as soon as they log in, the system then knows how to restrict or allow certain access to certain modules and features throughout the system. Now if, for example, the user that's logged in doesn't have access to certain modules, well then the modules menu up in the top will display or not display certain icons. Like for example, if the current user doesn't have access to sales invoices or the sales accounts module, well then those module icons won't appear in the top menu. And that makes the system feel simpler, especially for users that are currently using and learning the system for the first time. So that fairly much covers the access privilege functionality in JobPro.